2022. And on today's show, we are breaking down the newly released Big 12 preseason poll from the media, also looking at first team all Big 12, which was released on Wednesday. So a busy show coming up today. Hope you all enjoy.
You are Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Once again, Josh Neighbors here, Locked On Big 12. Thank you all for watching. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at BetOnline and BetOnline.net. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. Also, thank you guys for becoming part of this show. Our subscribers have been going through the roof recently. The show continues to grow, and so we appreciate all of you guys joining in on the fun. We are at 1,260 subscribers now. Keep that up, keep that going. Let's see if we can get 2K before the season starts. You guys can find this show wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as well. Also follow us on Twitter at LOBig12. You guys can find me at Josh Neighbors _. Also make sure you guys leave comments and questions for our weekly mailbags that we do. So I'm sure a lot of you all are tired of all the talk about conference realignment. And I've always said this about conference realignment. It feels, honestly, like when we discuss all that stuff, I graduated from Missouri back in 2019. Nothing makes me feel like the sport is further than going to a game on a Saturday morning than talking about, or going to a game, Saturday afternoon, whatever it is, tailgating, getting ready, going to the game, watching the game. Nothing makes me feel further away from that than talking about things like Oklahoma and Texas, the SEC, USC and UCLA to the Big Ten, or, the Pac-12 potentially going under, the Big 12 potentially going under, the ACC try to scramble out of their television contract. Like, what makes you think about a Saturday at Faurot Field, which is where Missouri plays, or a Saturday at T-Boone Pickens Stadium for those of you out there, or those of you who are Kansas State fans who think about a Saturday at Bill Snyder Family Stadium? Go through the entire list, whether you're a Big 12 fan, not a Big 12 fan. In my opinion, nothing makes us further from game days, the sport we love, the sport that we cover, more than the realignment talk, because it's so money centric. It's so money heavy. I understand that's what makes the world go round, but it really doesn't feel like we're talking about what's on the field. Well, today we're talking all about what's on the field, and really well, with also the media think of what's going to happen on the field. Now, they don't tell us who gets these votes, right? So I got a ballot. Robbie Triano got a ballot over from SiriusXM, my colleague there. He and I filled them out and sent them in. I'm not sure if they take those into consideration for either first team all Big 12 or for the preseason poll, but they sent them out to us. We filled them out. We sent them back. And we'll, they don't tell us if it's counted or not, but I'll show you guys what the poll yielded. We'll take a look right here. And before I show it, I just want to let you know, I've talked to a lot of people, whether they be hosts on this network, or they be people like Robbie, hosts at the SiriusXM Big 12 channels, such as Gabe Eichert, Ari Temkin, Dave Archer, Chris Plank, Dusty Dvoracek. There is a lot of conjecture. There's a lot of different thought about where these teams rank in relation to each other. Just like there was a lot of different thought about who should be on the all Big 12 team. I mean, I thought the three receivers were pretty solid. We'll get to this in a little bit. Quentin Johnston, Xavier Worthy, and Xavier Hutchinson. But today, Ari Temkin told us, no, he put Marvin Mims over Xavier Hutchinson. And then Dave Archer said, well, if you're going to do that, you should put it over Quentin Johnston. I was like, wow, I wouldn't put Marvin Mims over either of those guys. Those guys have to be on the team. So, not saying those guys are wrong. Those guys cover the league, have covered the league longer, honestly, than I have. But there can be varying opinions on this. Also, it's preseason prognostication. At best, it's motivation for a lot of these teams. None of this I would call coronation. So let's look here. Here is your Big 12 poll. 2022 preseason poll was released at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. I'm recording this at 2:27 Central Standard Time on the 7th. Obviously, this is Friday's episode when you're watching this, but just giving you all some context about when we're seeing this. So there's your top 5, or there's your all 10, but let's go to the top 5. Baylor, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, Texas, Kansas State, Iowa State. It's your first 6. Then TCU, West Virginia, Texas Tech, and Kansas. So Baylor gets 17 first place votes. Oklahoma, 12. Oklahoma State, 9. Texas, 2. Iowa State, 1. It's really interesting. Iowa State got 1. I'd love to know who thought that. Obviously, shipping the Iowa State Cyclones pretty hard there. But this shows you that there was some battle at the top. Baylor gets the first spot. I told you all that I had Baylor number 3 in my preseason poll. I don't fault anybody for putting them number 1. Obviously, the first team, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, is littered with Baylor Bear players, but I think there is some, and they're bringing back their staff. Obviously, a lot of continuity there. Ron Roberts and Jeff Grimes both return alongside Dave Aranda. And so, but the questions, though, remain about their quarterback, their running back, at wide receiver. Offensive line seems really good. Questions in the secondary also for them, and at linebacker, although they do have some very capable ones who are stepping up, but there are obviously some gaps. Defensive line, people have a lot of good things to say about their defensive line, obviously, I talked about this before, but I voted their big man, Siaki Ika, as Defensive Player of the Year preseason. So a lot of thought there. And they've got guys littered all over the first and second teams. I voted Oklahoma first. Now, they only have like 1 or 2 guys, actually, they have 1 guy, Michael Turk, on first team All Big 12. But you got to think that a massive wholesale change for them as a program resulted in them getting Brent Venables, one of the most highly thought of defensive coordinators who is out there. It also resulted in them bringing in Jeff Lebby, who is a very well-known and very good play caller. They get, to obviously bring in a Dylan Gabriel. He's got a good relationship with him. Yes, they do lose some things. Caleb Williams leaves. Spencer Rattler has left. They lose guys like Mario Williams as well. And that defensive line did take did lose a decent amount of guys. But there is some hope here. I mean, I think they've got a lot of good options on offense. Eric Gray in the backfield alongside at wide receiver, Marvin Mims and Braden Willis, 2 guys to look at this season at tight end. So the offense question, I mean, they got some good defensive players, guys like Danny Stutzman, guys up front like Jalen Redmond. So this team does have some really capable players. I would not be shocked if we see 4 or 5 Sooners up there. But I will say, a lot of my calculus for putting OU 1 was looking at their schedule. They have a very, very favorable schedule in the year 2022. Look at it, and you cannot find me off the top 2 games where they're going to be underdogs. UTEP at home, they'll be favored. Kent State at home, favored. Nebraska on the road, probably going to be a favorite. Kansas State on the road, probably going to be a favorite. TCU on the road, bet they're a favorite. OU Texas, that one go either way. We've seen Texas as a slight favorite, but it's a 3-point favorite. So really within the margin of error there on that. Kansas at home should be favored. Oklahoma at Iowa State should be favored. Baylor comes to them. We'll see what's happening at that point of year, but I mean, OU at home, tough team to beat. Oklahoma goes to West Virginia. They host Oklahoma State in Bedlam, and they go to Texas Tech. I'm saying if they maintain relative health, they should be favorites in a lot of their games. Does it mean they win all of them? No, but I like the fact that they're going to be favorites going into a lot of these contests. That always bodes well. Oklahoma State, 9 first-place votes. I just have too many questions about their offense and what's going to happen kind of in the back end at linebacker, especially for them on defense. They've got a lot of questions to answer. Love the fact they brought in Derek Mason, to fill that spot that was left by Jim Knowles going to Ohio State. I think that's huge for them. I think their defensive line, especially anchored at those ends with Tyler Lacey and Brock Martin, is going to be in great shape. We'll see what happens, though. Once again, that linebacker spot, they've got some questions. Then and Spencer Sanders, too, who we'll get to here in just a bit. Also, let's go next to Texas in the 4 spot. So Texas is at number 4, 2 first-place votes. I think they got a good chance this year with the talent. We've been over the Texas this conversation a million times, so I'm not going to bore you all with it over and over and over again. So, with like the talent, we got to roll a ball out and see what happens. We've had so much talk about them this offseason. I feel like, I know we're a little bit over 2 months away or around 2 months away, whatever it is. And we're just already ready to get this thing on with, right? We're already get on with Texas playing to see what they have. But Steve Sarkisian, I think, has got some, obviously higher expectations. Will it be incremental growth for them here in year number 2 under Sark, or will it be a larger step forward, or, will they sit right where they're at right now? Kansas State is that swing team. We've talked about K-State so often on this show, about, the talent they have, and Phil Brooks and Malik Knowles. And obviously, they have Deuce Vaughn in the backfield and bringing Adrian Martinez and Felix Enudike-Uzama, and then that linebacker with Green there, and in that secondary, a couple really talented guys, including Julius Brents. I mean, this team has got a lot of depth, or a lot of good players, a lot of spots. Spring practice didn't always go as well as they thought, but we'll see. And we've heard that their offense is going to be a bit more fast paced. That's what they're looking for coming up. And so, I'm curious to see what that looks like this year. And can that's the team. I've said it before. I'll say it again. That is my team sitting outside the top 5, can make that jump, can make that leap potentially. Iowa State at 6th. I don't understand the vote. I don't understand the first place vote. A lot of questions there. Matt Campbell, they could have a sneaky good season, but Iowa State, TCU, West Virginia, and Tech, I all had them in a different order. And I think it's, you can kind of choose whatever way you want to go with with that order there in the back end, and then Kansas last. I'm not sure we can disagree with that too much. So there is your preseason poll. I'm not shocked to see Baylor up top. I told Robbie Triano that. I told him I think a lot of people are going to have Baylor up top, but they won the conference last year, and people think they might be able to do it again this year. All right, quick word from our sponsors, and we'll talk about first team, all Big 12. Today's show is brought to you by Bet Online. Go to Bet Online and betonline.net today. When you guys do, you can check out their sleek new interface, and you can sign up for free today. So go to the website, Bet Online and betonline.net. You guys can see the odds for Major League Baseball. You guys can see their odds for the upcoming college football season, and bet on where you think teams in the Big 12 will end up and how many wins they will get on the season, who will win the conference. You can bet on all of those things today at BetOnline and betonline.net. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. All right. Sip of the water there, and then we will fire up here the media preseason poll, first team all Big 12. So going to share my screen here, Chrome tab, we'll go there. Oh, no, we don't want that. That's all the files. Let's go with Chrome tab. There it is. All right. So what we're looking at here first is the offensive player of the year. That is Bijan Robinson out of Texas. I voted for Deuce Vaughn. I've got no problem with anybody selecting Bijan. You could go either way. Bijan Robinson, in my opinion, the most talented player in this conference, regardless of position. I think that's a pretty fair statement to make. And look, we're talking about the NFL right now with running backs, a lot of them losing value in terms of the top of the mountain, right? You're seeing a lot of the running backs in the draft. Those guys are not taken as high. Bijan Robinson is at a talent level where he might not accomplish as much as Breece Hall or even accomplish as much as a Deuce Vaughn, although he was very accomplished last year, Bijan Robinson was. But because that talent level is so high, he is such a weapon that he might push his way into the first round. I think there's a very good chance of that. And so I think that's why people love that talent. But I don't think you can make any bones, get mad at anybody for putting Deuce Vaughn up there. And maybe if somebody went with a quarterback like Dylan Gabriel, I think if you're going to go with a player, two players who are just the best producers in this conference, the best players in this conference, I mean, there's a pretty good case for those two guys being talented and best. I guess different things. Your mileage varies. But I think Bijan Robinson is the most talented player in the conference. I think I'd argue Deuce Vaughn's the best player in the conference, splitting hairs in certain ways there, capabilities versus production, whatever it is. But yeah, I think that's, not too surprising to see Bijan Robinson up top. Then at defensive player of the year, Felix Enudike-Uzama, Kansas State defensive lineman. He definitely deserves this designation. I really think he does deserve it. I voted for Siaki Ika because I like to give love to interior defensive linemen. Their job is not always to put up huge numbers and in big numbers. Sometimes their job is to draw a lot of attention to open things up for other guys. And so that's why I think Siaki Ika is going to be a force. In my opinion, he could be the biggest force in this conference this year, although the stats might not be as good as an Anodike Uzama. So you want to ask me who is going to win the award, based off the numbers and stuff, I bet Anodike Uzama does, but I picked Ika because of his abilities and what I think he'll do for that defense. So splitting hairs there, but there's no wrong answer with that. And then newcomer of the year, Dylan Gabriel. Quinn Ewers could be in here. May even add Joel Billingsley. May even add an Isaiah Nair into that conversation. But to me, I think it's pretty clear, hey, JT Daniels could shoot up the thing and win this thing. Adrian Martinez could. I wouldn't put a lot of money on that, but he could come and win this. But Dylan Gabriel is going with a coordinator that we know is very good at a place has normally had very good offenses. Once again, the coordinator that he knows with some decent weapons around him, an offensive line that we think is going to be pretty good. I like my chances there with Dylan Gabriel, a natural leader and a guy who's probably going to put up big numbers in an offense that usually does put up some pretty good numbers. All right, so now let's look at the actual teams themselves. I'll zoom in just a little bit, and then we'll zoom out here. So Spencer Sanders is your quarterback. Deuce Vaughn and Bijan Robinson, your running backs. Jared Russ is your fullback. Xavier Hutchinson, Quentin Johnston, and Xavier Worthy are your wide receivers. Ben Sims is your tight end. Connor Galvin, Jacob Gall, Trevor Downing, Cooper Beebe, Zach Frazier, your offensive line. Casey Legg is your place kicker. And then Malik Knowles is your punt returner and kick returner. So what stands out here? Well, 3 Baylor guys who are in or around the offensive line, Galvin and Gall, and then obviously Ben Sims is on the end of that offensive line there. But 6'4", 253, you can bet you're behind that he's blocking. Wide receivers, there's not a whole lot of conversation there. Although if you want to put Marvin Mims, I guess you could. I don't see that. I think those 3 guys are the right guys. And also any argument against Quentin Johnston is based in the fact that his offense around him was not as good last year and didn't allow him to succeed as much, and also was injured part of the season too. Running backs, there's no debate at all. And then quarterback, there was some debate. I put Dylan Gabriel as the first team quarterback for this. That was the decision that I made on that front. So I thought, I'm going to have a little background here on this. I thought Dylan Gabriel should have been the guy at quarterback to me. I think he is a better quarterback. I know Spencer Sanders won the award was put on first team Big 12 last season. I get that. I own property on Spencer Sanders Island. I have been on his back, hoping that he would kind of become the player that I believe he has got the talent to become. Well, he has not yet done that fully. He's shown flashes. He's shown moments, but he's not put it together all the time. And so I think we have to consider that very heavily when taking a look at this. Dylan Gabriel has succeeded. He had 2 really awesome seasons. Obviously, 3rd season cut short with COVID, but 2 really awesome seasons at UCF. And also, I know it's a league down, but he's going to be reuniting with a coordinator he knows very well. Step up in competition, but I think he knows that. He's aware of that. I think he's ready to go. So I think Dylan Gabriel would be my guy. I understand why people did put Spencer Sanders up there. All right, Siaki Ika, Will McDonald, Felix Anodike Uzama, Colin Oliver, and Dante Stills. It's a 5-man defensive line, but what a deserving group. You got the interior guys there. You got the outside guys there. This is going to be a really, really good. If this was a team, this would be a really, really good defensive that they have here, on the season for the Big 12. This is a really, really strong group that they've got in the Big 12 here. And I know another guy, Tyler Lacey, we talked about, is going to be a really good defensive end, a really good defensive lineman. But it's too crowded. Like this might be the biggest position of strength in the Big 12 coming into this season. I think defensive line is really strong because you got guys like Lacey. You also got guys like Jalen Redmond that we didn't even know that could have been on this list. At linebacker, this is where it's interesting. Dylan Doyle from Baylor, Daniel Green from Kansas State, and DeMarvion Overshone from Texas. All 3 of those guys were honorable mention last year. So there's no returners. Everybody's looking at that linebacker spot. Everybody's looking to see who is going to step up. who is going to earn their keep there. And then at defensive back, Kenny Logan, Julius Brents, Jason Taylor, Travius Hodges Tomlinson. I always want to put Tomlinson Hodges first, but it's Hodges Tomlinson, Charles Woods, and then Michael Turk is your punter. Kenny Logan obviously deserves to be on this list. Julius Brents is a big dude. Jason Taylor is a guy that I think is going to get a bigger role now. There's no Malcolm Rodriguez in front of him and also no Colby Harvell-Peel beside him. And then Travius Hodges Tomlinson was on there last year, a great corner. Interesting to see Charles Wood's name on here. Actually, put the other corner from Kansas State on there, Bo, I think his last name. I'm totally forgetting off the top of my head. But Charles Woods makes this list. And also think about it like this too, y'all. Kansas State ends up getting the most out of anybody on this with, I believe, 6. Deuce is 1. Cooper Beebe is 2. Malik Knowles is 3. Daniel Green is 4. And Odike Azama is 5. Julius Brents is 6. OU only 1 player on here. But, this is why people are giving Kansas State that outside shot to potentially win the Big 12 this year. It is because of how good, how good that team is and how much talent they've kind of stacked up in kind of almost a weird way. It's kind of almost jumped on a lot of us, but it doesn't feel like they're much of a dark horse heading into the season. There is going to be some expectations on this Kansas State team as we head into 2022. So there is your preseason poll and your first team all Big 12. All right, make sure you guys follow us on Twitter at LO Big 12. You guys can find the show. If you get your podcast, you guys can follow me on Twitter at @JoshNeighbors_. Make sure you guys subscribe on YouTube and find the show wherever you get your podcast as well. We'll see you guys next week, unless there's some breaking news over the course of the weekend, which there obviously could be in these crazy times. But till next time, as always, stay safe.